Misty Rowe.
Our guest today has appeared in over 200 television shows, 5 series, and 10 motion pictures. She's appeared on The Doris Day Show, Happy Days, Fantasy Island, Silver Spoons, MacGyver, and on it goes. But she's probably best known as a Hee Haw Honey. She was a regular on the country music and variety comedy series for nearly 20 years. And we're thrilled to welcome Misty Rowe to the program today. Welcome.
Thanks so much.
You know, you've done so much over the course of your career, whether it be comedy or drama, acting or singing. What were you focused on when you were a little girl? Did you always know you wanted to be an entertainer?
I wanted to be an actress and a writer. And I used to write little shows, and we'd put them on in the garage with all the neighborhood kids, and my mom would make like a stage curtain out of sheets.
It sounds like you were living kind of a real-life Little Rascals there.
Kind of like that, yeah.
So after the performances in the backyard, how did you break into show business?
My mom got me dance lessons because I had a bad leg, and she didn't want kids to make fun of me when I went to school. So I had ballet and tap for about 12 years. And I say my first start was actually my first date when a guy told me I wasn't as pretty as his last girlfriend.
What a jerk.
I had my first pair of heels on, and it was what they call a car date. The first time my parents had allowed me out in a car. And he stopped to get gas, and he left the radio on. And as he got out of the car, he said, "You're cute, but you're not as pretty as my first girlfriend."
Oh, my goodness.
And I was just devastated. And on the radio, while he was out of the car, came this ad that said, "You too can be a go-go dancer for the world-famous Hollywood Palladium, and to send your picture in for the Teenage Fair to Teen Beat magazine." And I did that. And I got an audition, and my mom drove me down there. I was 15 years old, and there were 2,000 girls there. Wow. And they lined us up in groups of 20, and they'd cut the line, and I was still in the line at the end of the day, and they said, "Do you have a Social Security card?" And I said, "No, but I can get one. What is it?" And that was my first big start for Easter week, dancing at the Hollywood Palladium, 50 feet up in a tower behind Sonny and Cher.
Wow.
The Bee Gees, and the Young Rascals.
Now, did you ever find this guy and tell him off?
Oh, no, he came to the fair, and he was 50 feet below me, waving, yelling my name.
You should have said, "Yeah, stay down there, buddy." Our guest today is the lovely and talented Misty Rowe. Now, if I have the timeline correct here, you joined the cast of Hee Haw in the show's very early days, so it couldn't have been too long after dancing 50 feet in the air at the Hollywood Palladium.
Well, I had taken drama in high school because I had a lisp as a little girl, and so they put me into drama, hoping that would help my speech. And really, I was quite shy, so being on stage helped with that little. And I actually did a very low-budget movie. I won't tell you what it was, but they had it on Hollywood Boulevard, and an agent signed me up. I was very young, and I got an audition for Hee Haw.
By the way, I think I know that low-budget movie. You know, it's actually, you know what? It's a good film. I know there was no money behind it, but it was a good movie.
Well, they made it for like $29,000.
Right.
And it was, I'll tell you, it was called The Hitchhikers, and this man and woman who were married, Bevan Ferd Sebastian, they made it themselves. He was the cameraman, she wrote it, and they would actually take me up Highway 101 in California, and they'd say, "Misty, get out of the car and put your thumb out." And then we'd get back in the car and we'd drive up the coast more. So I'd look like a hitchhiker. But it actually got a very good review in the LA Times. And I got a wonderful review, and Hee Haw called me in.
Now, the interesting thing to me about Hee Haw, this was a show that the networks hated it. They had no faith in it at all. And boy, were they proven wrong.
Well, they thought it was too blue collar. but it had great musicians and funny stuff. And it was all sort of improv. Nobody had a script. They put everything up on cue cards. And if you jumped up in the cornfield and you muffed it, they showed your blooper.
Yeah.
And it just caught on, and I tell you, to this day, people come up to me and say, "Oh, we loved you on Hee Haw. Is Roy Clark still alive? The girls were so pretty. Oh, we loved you with Junior Samples."
Ladies and gentlemen, here's a man that needs plenty of introduction, Junior the Great! Junior, are you really a good magician?
Some say I'm the best in the country. The problem was bringing my act to the city.
Oh, do you draw a big crowd?
Are you kidding? I've seen more empty seats than a tailor.
I heard the Magicians Union threw you a big dinner just last week.
Yeah, I was lucky. It didn't hit me. Folks, get down to Junior's used car lot. The number to call is BR549.
You know, Hee Haw was a show that the whole family could watch, which is a rarity these days. And even though the Hee Haw Honeys added sex appeal, the show and the girls were always wholesome.
Yes, and we had what I think are some of the most beautiful, talented, intelligent women on television. When you look at them, there is Marianne Gordon, who was a model, and then she married Kenny Rogers. Mm-hmm. And there was Linda Thompson, who dated Elvis Presley. And when that didn't work out, she married Bruce Jenner. And, and Lulu Roman, she sings gospel, and she's won so many Dove Awards. And Victoria Hallman, she was Buck Owens' singer. She was the only female buckaroo. And Vicki and I are now in a show called Hee Haw Honey Reunion, which we've done twice and are about to do again next year. And Barbie Benton, who doesn't know Barb?
I know.
She said, "Well, I want to be in it." So we're collecting the Hee Haw girls, the Hee Haw Honeys, and we're actually going on stage together.
Yeah, I know you did some of that last year, and that was just so wonderful to see you together on there. Of course, Barbie also had her country music career, so, you know, she's a singer-songwriter.
She had gold records. A lot of people don't know it, but she had gold records.
Now, while you were appearing on Hee Haw, you were also a regular on Happy Days as Wendy, the car hop.
Wow, you watching Fonzie's Girl? She doesn't need watching. Who would mess with Fonzie's Girl? Could we order now, Wendy?
You guys better not mess around with Fonzie's Girl. That's dangerous.
I'm just keeping an eye on her for a week. Fonzie asked me to.
Okay, that's settled. Let's order. I want a double cheese.
You're watching Fonzie's Girlfriend for a week? Oh, that's so nice of you, Richie.
Yeah, listen, why don't you send a soda over to Denise for me, will you?
Sure. I'll make it a double and bill you for a single. You're such a nice guy.
I'll have a double cheeseburger, an order of fries, and a chocolate malt. She didn't take my order. She never listens to me. Nobody listens to me.
That's amazing that you were on 2 hit shows simultaneously.
I was very blessed. I did 5 TV series. First I got Hee Haw, then I got Wendy the Car Hop on Happy Days.
Right.
Then Mel Brooks saw me in People magazine when I did the Marilyn Monroe film, and he called me into Paramount Studios to audition me for Maid Marian, and I did the When Things Were Rotten series, which, by the way, has just been released on DVD with Time Life Warner.
Right, so, and Hee Haw, the same thing.
Uh-huh, and then Hee Haw did a spin-off called Hee Haw Honeys, and Kathy Lee Gifford was my sister, and Lulu Roman was my mother, and that went on for a while, and that's how the term Hee Haw Honey became. And after I left that show and went back on Hee Haw, then we were all known as Hee Haw Honeys. And then Norman Lear cast me on a show called Joe's World with Christopher Knight from the Brady Bunch.
Oh, okay.
And I was a female painter on that. And then everything just sort of exploded, and I would come home, and there'd be scripts on my doorstep from Aaron Spelling to do Love Boat, and then there'd be things for Fantasy Island, and then Universal called me in, and I auditioned for Airwolf, and that was probably my best role on TV, Airwolf. I was a guest star on that with Ernest Borgnine and Jan Michael Vincent. So I've been very, very blessed.
You know, I bet a lot of people remember that Marilyn Monroe biopic, Goodbye, Norma Jean. Now, to play someone as iconic a figure as Marilyn had to have been, well, a little overwhelming.
Well, they actually passed me over the first time. They used to have these big casting books, and your 8x10 would be in it. Now everything is done online, of course. And they auditioned more than 200 girls for it, couldn't find what they were looking for, and my agent called back and said, well, why don't you see Misty Rowe? And I went in, and I had actually gone to a photographer, and I had him take black and whites of me in an evening gown and a Marilyn wig, and I had those in my portfolio. And then I went in and cut off jeans and a tight sweater with lip gloss and no other makeup, and I just sat there in the waiting room. And the director, Larry Buchanan, walked through and turned around, and he said, who are you? I said, I'm Misty Rowe. And he said, come in, come in, come in. And they saw me as looking very young, like Norma Jean did in person. And they saw pictures that I had taken of me as Monroe, and they liked that. So they screen tested me with some other girls, and I was fortunate to get it. And the best thing is, though, I flew to London, England for the opening, and I went to the Tin Pan Alley Ball, and across the room, this very elegant young man came over and said, Elton John would like to meet you.
Oh, of course he'd want to meet you. Your movie was named after a lyric in his song.
And so they escorted me to Elton's table, and we met, and all these flash bulbs went off, and we were on all the covers of the London press the next day. And the phone rang, and it was Elton's butler, Michael, and he said, Elton has tickets to a chorus line, but he can't go. Would you like to go with his parents instead? And I said, sure. They said, we'll send the rolls for you at 7. I said, thank you. And I was modeling at Madame Tussauds. I was modeling the famous 7-year itch dress. And, you know, Big Ben struck 7, and I ran out of Madame Tussauds because Elton's parents were picking me up in a Rolls Royce. And we went to Chorus Line, and then we went and ate lobster. And then they dropped me off at my hotel, and there were 2 security guards there from Lloyd's of London. And they said, Miss Rowe, you left with Marilyn's dress. We want it back. And they actually followed me to my hotel room and waited. And then I had to give them the dress back. And then it sold at Sotheby's auction for $7.5 million.
Oh, you should have kept that dress somehow.
I guess I shouldn't have been running around eating lobster in it.
That was Elton John, of course, with his classic Candle in the Wind, 1974. Our guest today is the delightful Misty Rowe. And Misty, tell us a little bit about this project you're doing now, this Patsy Cline show.
I had a great TV career for over 20 years, and I have no complaints. And I did a lot of B-movies, but I have been doing stage. I've done about 3,000 stage performances now, and I've been directing.
Now, that harkens back to what you wanted to do when you were a little girl.
Yes, yes. I had been in a show after my divorce. I found myself in Connecticut, you know, like former sex symbol, aging in Connecticut. And the licensing director, Joan Kovacs of Always Patsy Cline, came to see me for a visit. And when she saw I was getting divorced, I had a 2-year-old baby, my house was up for sale, she goes, this can't be. This just cannot be. With the career you've had, you can't be left like this. Because my husband ran off with a soap opera star. So, there I was, and she said, I want you to audition for Always Patsy Cline. And they're doing it in Denver, Colorado at a performing arts center. I want you to fly out there and see it. And the creator of the show is there. I want you to audition for one of the parts the next day. Mm-hmm. And she goes, oh, but by the way, they won't pay your airfare or hotel.
Oh, wonderful.
And I said, what? And she said, honey, if you get on that plane and you get to that theater, I know they will hire you. So she even watched my baby, loaned me a suitcase, and I flew out there and I did audition for Ted Swinley, the creator of Always Patsy Cline. And he directed me in the part of Louise. I don't know if you know the show or not, but it's a great show. And I've just celebrated my 1,000th performance last year, and they sold out. I did it at a little theater in Hilton Head Island because I wanted to visit my uncle, who's lived there for 32 years. And they sold out, and they've invited me back. And I worked with a fabulous Patsy Cline singer named Sarah Catherine Wheatley, who's from Nashville. And we're going to be meeting up again this April for 10 days to do Always Patsy Cline again.
The audience can go to Google and search and look for Always Patsy Cline. There's a website for that show.
Yes, but you can also go to www.patsyclinehhi.com. And HHI is Hilton Head Island. And they can, of course, visit my website, which is mistyrowe.com, and they can virtually see everything I've ever done.
It's all up there. So once again, mistyrowe.com is where everyone could go to get all the information, including, I would imagine, do you list appearances on there?
I list my email on there, and a lot of fans actually email me, and I always respond to them. So if you want to get in touch with me, go to my website, mistyrowe.com, or come see me in Always Patsy Cline next month.
Well, that is just fantastic. What a joy it has been to speak with you. I'm so happy we had a chance to do this because I can speak for the audience. We've enjoyed your work these many years, and will continue to do so.
Well, thank you so much.
And you have a great rest of your day.
That's all.
All right, bye-bye.